CEO hired a stranger to pretend to be her husband for 1 week. He said, "I'm not sleeping on the sofa." Hello everyone, and welcome back to Romance Rewind Stories. Before we dive into today's incredible story, I have a small favor to ask. If you're enjoying these heartwarming tales, please hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our latest uploads. It's quick, it's free, and it's the best way to support us in bringing you more emotional romance stories. And here's something I'd love to know. Where are you watching from today? Drop your city or country in the comments below. I always enjoy seeing our amazing community from around the world. Oh, and if this story touches your heart, don't forget to hit the like button. It really helps us grow and reach more people who love these kinds of tales. Now, let's get into today's story. She hired a stranger to pretend to be her husband for 1 week. Then, he saved her life. When Lennox Hayes posted the ad online, she never imagined it would lead to the most terrifying and transformative week of her life. The ad was simple, clinical even. Need someone to pose as spouse for business trip. Professional setting. 1 week. Compensation $15,000. Must be reliable, presentable, and discreet. She'd received 47 responses within the first hour. But only one made her pause. A message from someone named Gideon Frost that simply said, "I've done private security for 10 years. I can handle a week of pretending to be married. When do we start?" Now, standing in her downtown loft as this stranger walked through her door for the first time, Lennox wondered if she'd made a catastrophic mistake. Gideon Frost was not what she expected. At 38, he was tall and broad-shouldered, with the kind of presence that made you instinctively trust him, or fear him. She wasn't sure which yet. His dark hair was streaked with grey at the temples, and a scar cut through his left eyebrow, giving him a dangerous edge that his tailored suit couldn't quite hide. "Miss Hayes," he said, extending his hand. His grip was firm, controlled. "I appreciate the opportunity." "It's Dr. Hayes, actually," Lennox corrected, shaking his hand. "And I'm not sure opportunity is the right word for what I'm asking you to do." At 35, Lennox was one of the youngest heads of neurosurgery in the country, a position she'd fought tooth and nail to achieve. But that achievement came with complications, including a business conference in Dubai where her professional credibility was being questioned by competitors who dismissed her as too young and unmarried to be taken seriously in their traditional circles. "Let me be clear about something," Lennox said, pacing her living room. "This isn't romantic. This is purely professional. I need a husband for appearances at a medical conference. You'll attend dinners, shake hands, look supportive. That's it." "Understood," Gideon said, his grey eyes studying her with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. "But if I'm going to play the part convincingly, I'll need to know more about you than what's in your Wikipedia entry." Lennox's eyebrows shot up. "You looked me up? Due diligence. You're hiring a stranger to pretend to be your husband. I wanted to make sure you weren't planning to harvest my organs." A hint of a smile touched his lips. "Dr. Hayes, if we're going to sell this, we need a believable story. How we met, how long we've been married, what I do for a living, all of it needs to be airtight." He was right, and she hated that he was right. Over the next hour, they crafted their cover story. Married for 3 years, met when he was consulting on hospital security after she'd received death threats from a patient's family member. It was close enough to plausible that they could remember the details. "One more thing," Gideon said as they finished. "I need to know if there's any actual danger at this conference. Any reason someone might want to hurt you beyond professional jealousy." Lennox hesitated. "Why would you ask that?" "Because you hired someone with a security background, not an actor or escort service. That tells me you're worried about more than just impressing colleagues." She looked away, impressed by his perception and annoyed by it in equal measure. "There have been incidents, nothing serious, just some threatening emails about a paper I published that contradicted some powerful people's research. Hospital security said it was probably nothing. No, probably isn't definitely, Gideon said. I'll keep my eyes open. 3 days later, they arrived in Dubai. The conference was held at a luxury hotel overlooking the Persian Gulf, and Lennox felt her anxiety spike the moment they stepped into the marble-floored lobby filled with the world's top neurosurgeons. "Breathe," Gideon murmured, his hand finding the small of her back, a gesture so natural that several heads turned to look at them with appreciation. "Your doctor. Lennox Hayes, brilliant surgeon, published researcher, and complete badass. They should be intimidated by you." Despite herself, Lennox smiled. "Did you just call me a badass?" "I've read your research. Anyone who can make sense of neuroplasticity in layman's terms is a badass in my book." The first evening's reception was a minefield of passive-aggressive comments and thinly veiled skepticism about her research. But every time someone questioned her credentials, Gideon was there, not defending her but supporting her in subtle ways. A hand on her shoulder, a proud smile, his presence declaring without words that she was someone worth respecting. "Your husband is quite devoted," Dr. Marcus Reeves observed, approaching them near the bar. Reeves was one of the old guard, a surgeon whose research Lennox's recent paper had essentially debunked. "How long have you been married?" 3 years, Lennox answered smoothly, "though it feels like we've known each other forever." "And what do you do, Mr. Hayes?" Reeves asked Gideon, his tone condescending. "Frost, actually," Gideon corrected pleasantly. Lennox kept her name professionally. "I consult on security infrastructure for medical facilities." "How practical," Reeves said, making it sound like an insult. He turned back to Lennox. "I look forward to your presentation tomorrow, Dr. Hayes. I'm sure it will be illuminating." After he walked away, Lennox let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. "That man hates me. My research basically proved his life's work was based on flawed premises." "Then your presentation tomorrow will destroy him professionally," Gideon said, "which gives him motive for what? For wanting to discredit you? Or worse?" His expression was serious. "Lennox, I want you to be careful. Don't accept drinks from anyone. Don't go anywhere alone. And if anything feels off, you tell me immediately. You're being paranoid." "I'm being cautious. There's a difference." That night, they shared the hotel suite's bedroom, 2 separate beds, as per their agreement. But lying in the dark, listening to Gideon's even breathing across the room, Lennox felt an unexpected sense of safety she hadn't experienced in years. "Can I ask you something?" she said into the darkness. "Sure. And why did you really take this job? $15,000 is good money, but you could make more doing actual security work." Silence. Then, "My wife died 2 years ago. Cancer. Since then, I've been going through the motions. When I saw your ad, something about it felt like a chance to be part of someone's life again, even if just for pretend, even if just for a week." Lennox felt tears prick her eyes. "I'm sorry about your wife. And I'm sorry about whatever made you think you needed to hire a fake husband to be taken seriously." His voice was gentle. "For what it's worth, anyone who can't see your brilliance without a ring on your finger is an idiot." The next morning, Lennox's presentation was scheduled for 10 a.m. She'd been preparing for months, and her research was solid. But as she stood backstage waiting to go on, her hands trembled slightly. Gideon appeared beside her, pressing a bottle of water into her hands. "Drink. Stay hydrated. You're going to be great." "How do you know?" "Because I've been watching you for 3 days, and you're the most competent person I've ever met. That includes Navy SEALs I've worked with. You've got this." His confidence in her was surprisingly steadying. Lennox walked onto that stage and delivered the presentation of her life. The applause afterward was genuine, the questions thoughtful and engaged. She'd done it, proved her research, defended her methodology, and earned the respect of her peers. But as she left the stage, riding high on adrenaline and success, she didn't notice the man in the back row, whose expression was anything but congratulatory. Dr. Marcus Reeves looked like a man whose world had just collapsed, and as Lennox would learn soon enough, that made him very dangerous indeed. The celebration lunch was held at the hotel's rooftop restaurant, with stunning views of Dubai's skyline. Lennox was surrounded by colleagues offering congratulations and wanting to discuss collaborations. For the first time since arriving, she felt like she belonged. "Your husband is very patient," observed Dr. Sarah Chen, a colleague from Boston. "Mine would have been bored senseless by now." Lennox looked over to where Gideon stood near the bar, scanning the room with that alert awareness she was starting to recognize. "He's very supportive. Hold on to that one," Sarah said with a smile. "Men who aren't threatened by successful women are rare." As the lunch wound down, Lennox excused herself to the restroom. She was washing her hands when Dr. Reeves entered, walking into the women's restroom without hesitation. "Dr. Reeves," Lennox said, alarmed. "This is the women's—" "We need to talk about your research," he interrupted, moving to block the door. "You've made me look like a fool." "Your own flawed methodology did that," Lennox said, trying to keep her voice steady. "My research just proved it." 30 years, Reeves said, his face flushing red. 30 years of work, and you destroyed it in one paper. Do you have any idea what that means? The funding I'll lose? The reputation? "That's not my fault, you arrogant little girl," he spat. "You think you're so smart. But what if your research was wrong? What if your data was compromised?" The threat was clear. Lennox's heart raced. "What are you talking about?" "Accidents happen at conferences," Reeves said, stepping closer. "Falls from balconies, food poisoning, car accidents on the way to the airport. Would be such a tragedy if something happened to the brilliant Dr. Hayes." Before Lennox could respond, the door burst open. Gideon filled the doorway, his expression dark and dangerous. "Step away from my wife," he said, his voice deadly calm. "Now." Reeves paled, seeming to realize how his actions looked. "I was just threatening her," Gideon finished. "I heard enough. You have exactly 5 seconds to leave before I call security and hotel management to explain why a male doctor was cornering a female colleague in a women's restroom." Reeves fled. Once he was gone, Gideon's expression softened as he turned to Lennox, who was shaking. "Are you okay?" "How did you know?" she whispered. "I've been watching him watch you all morning. When you left and he followed, I knew something was wrong." He gently took her arm. "Come on. We're going back to the room. I'm calling hotel security and filing a report. It'll create a scene." "I don't care," Gideon said firmly. "He threatened you, Lennox. That's not professional rivalry. That's dangerous." Hotel security took her statement seriously, especially when Gideon mentioned his background in protection services. Reeves was asked to leave the conference immediately, and additional security was assigned to Lennox for the remainder of the event. Back in their suite, Lennox collapsed on the couch, the adrenaline crash hitting her hard. "This is insane. He was going to hurt me. Actually hurt me." Gideon sat beside her, not touching but close. "But he didn't. And now he can't. You're safe." "Because of you." Lennox looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time. This man who was supposed to be playing a role had genuinely protected her. "You didn't have to do that, going beyond the job description." "Some things matter more than job descriptions," Gideon said quietly, "like making sure brilliant women aren't threatened for being smarter than insecure men." Something shifted between them in that moment. The pretense they'd been maintaining started to feel less like pretense and more like something real. "Gideon," Lennox said softly, "what are we doing here?" "Really?" He met her eyes. "I don't know. But I know that when I saw him corner you, I wasn't thinking about the job or the money. I was thinking that if anyone hurt you, I'd make them regret it. That's not professional, that's personal." "This was supposed to be fake," Lennox whispered, but she was leaning toward him anyway. "I know," Gideon said, his hand coming up to cup her face. "But it doesn't feel fake anymore." When he kissed her, It was nothing like the performative pecs they'd shared for appearances at conference events. This was real, desperate and gentle, and full of everything they'd been holding back. They broke apart, both breathing hard. "This complicates things," Lennox said. "Everything about you complicates things," Gideon replied with a slight smile. "And I'm discovering I don't mind." The rest of the conference passed without incident, though security's presence was noticeable. But more than that, something fundamental had changed between Lennox and Gideon. The touches became real instead of performative. The smiles were genuine. The way they moved together felt natural, practiced, like they'd actually been married for years. On their last night in Dubai, they stood on their suite's balcony watching the sunset paint the city gold and crimson. "What happens when we get home?" Lennox asked. "The week will be over. Our arrangement ends." "Does it have to?" Gideon asked. "End?" Lennox turned to face him. "You're saying you want to keep pretending?" "No," he said firmly, taking her hands. "I'm saying I want to stop pretending. Lennox, I came here thinking I'd play a role for a week and leave. But you've reminded me what it feels like to care about someone, to want to protect them not because it's a job, but because the thought of anything happening to them is unbearable. Gideon, I'm not asking for promises or commitments," he continued. "I know we barely know each other outside of this situation, but I want to know you, really know you. The you who drinks terrible coffee at 6 a.m. and falls asleep reading research papers. The you who's brilliant and brave and doesn't realize how extraordinary she is." Tears filled Lennox's eyes. "I was so focused on my career that I convinced myself I didn't need anyone. That being alone was a choice I'd made, not something I was afraid of. But this week with you, even when it was fake, I felt less alone than I have in years." "Then let's try," Gideon said. "No pretending, no contracts. Just us, figuring it out as we go." Lennox kissed him then, with the certainty that she was making the best decision of her life. 6 months later, Lennox stood in Gideon's apartment, an apartment she'd been spending more nights at than her own loft. They'd taken it slow, learning each other outside the pressure of their Dubai arrangement. She'd met his late wife's family, who welcomed her with open arms. He'd come to her surgeries, waiting with coffee for when she emerged exhausted but triumphant. "I have something to tell you," Gideon said, looking nervous in a way she'd never seen. "And I hope you don't think I'm insane." "What is it?" He pulled out a small box, and Lennox's breath caught. But when he opened it, it wasn't an engagement ring. It was a simple silver band. "This was the ring I wore in Dubai," he said. "The fake wedding ring. And I've been carrying it with me ever since, because it reminds me of the week that changed my life." He took a breath. "Lennox Hayes, I know we did this backward. We pretended to be married before we even knew each other. But now that I know you, really know you, I don't want to pretend anymore. I want it to be real. I want to be your actual husband, not your fake one." Tears streamed down Lennox's face. "Are you proposing with a fake wedding ring?" "I'm proposing with the ring that started everything," Gideon corrected with a smile. "But I have a real one on order if you say yes." "Yes," Lennox laughed through her tears. "Yes, you absolute romantic." When they married a year later, it was a small ceremony with close friends and family. As Gideon slipped the ring onto her finger, a new ring this time, chosen together, Lennox reflected on how far they'd come from that first awkward meeting in her loft. She whispered as they danced at their reception, "I never did pay you that $15,000. Gideon smiled. "Consider it an investment in our future. Best return I've ever gotten." And as Lennox looked around at their loved ones, celebrating them, a union that had started as the most improbable of business arrangements, she knew that sometimes the best relationships begin with a stranger, a proposition, and the courage to turn pretend into reality. Because sometimes hiring a fake husband is exactly what you need to find a real one. And that's where our story ends today. What did you think? Did Lennox and Gideon's fake marriage turned real touch your heart? Let us know in the comments what your favorite moment was. If you enjoyed this story, we have so many more waiting for you. Check out our playlist for more heartwarming romance tales that will make you believe in love all over again. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and give us a thumbs up. Your support means everything to us. Until next time, keep believing in love, keep believing in second chances, and remember, the best stories are the ones that remind us we all deserve our happily ever after. See you in the next story.